Hello ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to episode number 2 of Keeping Up with the Keynesians. Today I'm joined by Mr. Ross Galway and Mr. James Hilton. How are you both today?
Yeah, good, Ollie. How are you?
Yeah, very good, very good. Brilliant. So, today's topic we're going to be talking about inflation targeting. So, we're going to be discussing whether 2% inflation target is still appropriate for today's economic situation. And in this episode, we're going to be debating whether it should be higher, lower, examples of where inflation targeting has been successful and less so. And we're going to have a little side segment, as always, to have a little bit of fun. So let's get into today's episode. Why inflation? So inflation affects everything pretty much, from wages to savings to mortgages to food prices. It's everywhere. I mean, you've probably seen over the past few years that inflation has really hit our lives with the cost of living crisis, just to name a bit. So, James, do you want to tell us a bit why we choose 2%?
Well, it came about 35 years ago in New Zealand, where they initially set the inflation target at around 0 to 2%. This was due to the very high inflation at the time, caused from the Yom Kippur War, which led to an oil crisis. The system had collapsed, leading to global currency instability, which led to massive inflation in New Zealand due to the changing exchange rate.
Brilliant. I mean, 2% obviously seemed like a nice number, and I think it's that Goldilocks point, obviously, where it's not too high, but it's not too low either. But then you could argue, why not 0% inflation? Like, if prices stay the same, should that be beneficial for all? I mean, businesses could plan for the future. I mean, 0% sounds great, but deflation is obviously a great issue. And I mean, in Japan, specifically towards the end of the 20th century, deflation was a great issue there. They tried lowering interest rates, but nothing could really stimulate that demand that was needed to recover the economy. So, therefore, deflation is almost as dangerous as hyperinflation in that way. So I guess that's why the 0% is not really used as an inflation target in today's economic situation. But why not higher inflation? If inflation is obviously a trade-off with higher economic growth and other beneficial economic situations, why don't we push inflation targets up? And I think that high inflation decreases confidence and it just creates an economic nightmare. And therefore I think 2%, in my opinion, is the perfect point of targeting, because it's not too low if the deflation comes about, but it's obviously not too high that you're going to risk it coming out of control. So obviously it's clear that 2% is meant to be the balance between growth and stability. But does it still work in today's world? I mean, Ross, can you look at some of the examples when inflation went wrong?
Yeah, so one example when inflation got a bit out of control is we had 1970s stagflation. So here, inflation hit double digits, just wasn't good, wages couldn't keep up, economies just slowed down really. So initially, the government just kept on printing money. However, this just devalued their currency, so yeah, it wasn't too good. But eventually, central banks just slammed their interest rates up. For example, in the US in the 1980s, they had 20% interest rates. Although this did trigger a very deep recession and did finally break the inflation. So from this we can take that once inflation does spiral out of control, it is very hard to fix. So this definitely did shape modern inflation targets.
So we're going to have a little debate now. Should we change the target? We're going to have James.
If you want to check out the full debate, check out the links in the description to Apple Podcasts, Spotify and all the other platforms.
A few minutes later.
But anyway, I thought that was a good debate, and I thought they were both very good points. So we're going to go on a little side segment. Oh, shake hands. There we go. Yeah.
No, do the handshake. Wrong, you fucked up. Yeah, there we go.
Did I get one? Okay. Right, anyway, we're going to go on a little side segment now. So, we've got a little game for James and Ross here that you can get involved in at home. So, we're going to have a game of higher or lower inflation. Cameraman does not approve of this side segment. I'm going to give you 4 different inflation scenarios, and you're basically going to tell me whether you think the consecutive scenarios are higher or lower than the last one. We're going to use our starting point as a UK inflation rate, which is at 3% as of January 2025. So, do you think that the UK in 1991, after a major interest rate hike, had a higher or lower rate of inflation?
Lower.
I think it must be lower as well.
Really? Right. I mean, that you would think that because obviously higher interest rates would stagnate that demand. But it was actually, the answer was higher at 5.87%.
You see, I assume if we had high interest rates, Can we stop laughing, please?
Yeah,
I'm trying to make a point.
Wow, what are you saying?
I personally thought if we had high interest rates, that sort of reduces demand. We're going to have more people being encouraged to save. So inflation will sort of slow down a bit.
It's obviously not the case. It shows how inflation rates are obviously unpredictable and are affected by other factors, and they can be out of our control. So the next one, going on from 5.87%, Japan in 1999, after its lost decade, do you think the inflation rate there was higher or lower?
Definitely lower, definitely.
Higher.
Higher? You're going to say higher? I'm afraid you're incorrect, James. It is lower. So Japan was renowned for, in the late 20th century, for having deflation. And obviously, in its lost decade, inflation was at an all-time low. They're still struggling to recover to this day. Kind of highlights how having low inflation can be detrimental to the economy. Therefore, really, should we go below the 2% target? But anyway, that was a good guess from both of you. So from minus 0.35%, which was the inflation rate in Japan, we're going to go to the US in 1979 during the oil crisis following the OPEC embargo.
Well, I'm pretty sure that one was 13.3%. So
Don't do the piss.
Very
Don't
sorry.
guess the answer.
You need to cover it.
Why you got to get the answer right?
You know, if you watch it back, I just look every time.
Can't just take the piss on it.
One
Retake.
later.
Do you think that the US inflation rate is higher or lower?
It's absolutely gone up.
Yeah, because it's very hard to have negative. Sorry. I think it's going to be higher.
Yeah. Cheers. I mean, you're both right. I think, obviously, if you have commodity prices soaring up, your inflation is going to go up subsequently. So I thought that was a pretty simple one. And to finish, we got Argentina in 2023 dealing with hyperinflation. Do you think that the inflation rate is higher or lower than the US?
Higher.
Hyperinflation, yeah, 100%. It was over 100% actually, the inflation rates. So well done to you both. I thought you both did very well.
Thank you very much.
I think Ross was the winner, unfortunately, James.
Ross did also cheat because he was looking at the answers.
Disappointing.
I'm not sore loser,
Anyway.
so I will.
Yeah. Sore losers look quite boring.
I'll take it on the chin. Wait.
Thank you for that side segment, chaps. We're going to move on to the key takeaways. So James, you want to summarise what we've talked about today?
Yeah, sure.
Wake up.
What I wrote down. Give me a second. Yeah, cheers, Ollie.
Oh, sorry, I'm just going to interrupt you.
Yeah,
We've got some insider information that one of our recording team has actually got for our thoughts. So well done, James Wolseley at the back. Right, let's go.
I think the 2% inflation target was a good idea in 1990, but with changing times, I think it's time to focus on something else. So I think.
What did you say like that?
Something else.
Capital E.
Yeah, that was a gay one. Yeah. Good show.
Alright.
You crashed out as well earlier. Right. Keep it going.
Who?
He's crashed out.
When did you crash out?
I didn't crash out.
You on the back, I just look every time.
Can't just take the piss on it. Inflation targeting alone is not enough anymore, and I think we need to have a look at some different tools. For example, the central banks should start focusing on things such as economic growth, as well as focusing on full employment in order to strive for maximum employment without triggering excessive inflation.
Thank you, Jane. Any takeaways from you, Ross?
I think we had a good chat. Got to the end of it. What should I say? Is there anything I can go against what James said?
Anyway, thank you, James. And I think inflation obviously is a very interesting topic. You've got Zimbabwe reaching sextillion% in inflation. So yeah, inflation can skyrocket and it can stay low. It's very unpredictable, and it's one of the most interesting things in economics. It may not be to you, but it is to us. Anyway, I thought that was a great episode, great discussion. Do we stand with changing the inflation rate? You don't? Okay. Ross?
Well,
We're just having. Podcast based. We'll be 5 minutes. Do you think inflation rate should change, Ross?
I mean, I can see it being an option in the future, but right now I think we're good.
Yeah. But anyway, thank you very much for listening, everyone. I thought that was a great discussion and great debate. I'm going to leave you with a question to finish. Do you think inflation targets should change, or do you think they're perfect the way they are? Please let us know in the comments. Email us at keepingupwiththekeynesians@gmail.com. Come look at our socials. We've got all sorts of polls, media, extra content on there. Keeping Up with the Keynesians on any handle. So check it out. Thank you very much for listening, and thank you both of you for coming back on the show.
Thank you very much, Oliver.
On behalf of the rest of the team, thank you everyone for listening. Goodbye.